All right, it's Coach Wallace coming to you again and want to welcome you here. The heart is a muscle, and it's like any other muscle in the body. If you don't use that muscle, you lose it. In other words, that muscle will begin to atrophy and it becomes unusable. Now, if I wanted to build up my arms, give me some exercises I could do to build up my arms. Pull-ups. Yes. Give me another one.
You could lift weights.
I could lift some weights. What else could I do?
You can pick up something.
I could pick up something. Okay. What else? Yes. Push-ups. Absolutely. These are things that build up my body, my upper body. If I want to build up my lower body, what would I do?
Some squats.
Huh?
Some squats.
Squats. Absolutely. What else?
Running.
Huh?
Running.
Running would. Yes, absolutely. What else? Running is kind of a cross training. In other words, it does more than just build up my legs, but it would definitely build up my lower body. What else?
Jumping jacks.
Jumping jacks would. Once again, that's cross training. In other words, that works more than one set of muscles. But yes, it would help me build up my lower body strength. One I immediately think of, if you ever been to the Y or to a gym, you've seen those weight machines that you push with your legs. Those right there would build up my lower body. If I want to build my core, what are some exercises I can do to build my core? Yes.
You can lift plank.
Huh?
You can plank.
Okay, plank. What else could I do to build my core?
Crunches.
Crunches. Yes, absolutely. What else? What kind of goes with crunches, but it's like a full crunch? How about sit-ups? Sit-ups.
Yeah.
Sit-ups would also help me build my core. Okay. But what about my heart? The heart's a muscle. So how am I going to build up my heart? What exercises can I do to build up my heart? What?
You can do running.
All right, running. Now, see what you're saying is that in order for me to build up my heart, I've got to use it. So I've got to increase my heart rate. So when we're measuring resting heart rate, that is your heart rate before you do any exercise. So before you do any activity. So when I measure my resting heart rate, then what I've got to do is I've got to do an exercise that increases that resting heart rate. And then after I do the exercise, or maybe even during the exercise, if I want to take my heart rate again, then what that's called is your active heart rate. Okay? Now, so I've got to elevate my heart rate in order to increase the strength of my heart, which is called cardiovascular endurance. To increase my cardiovascular endurance, I do an exercise that's called, anybody know? What would these exercises be that's increasing my heart rate and that is strengthening my heart? What were those exercises called?
Those exercises.
Anybody? Cardio. You ever heard somebody say, I'm going to go do some cardio? Well, cardio means I'm fixing to go do some exercises that are going to strengthen my heart, that I'm going to elevate my heart rate. It used to be known as aerobics, and it still can be called aerobic exercise. And aerobic, that word means with oxygen, but cardio is kind of the N word now, and that just means I'm going to do exercise that elevate my heart rate. What are some exercises I can do to elevate my heart rate? Yes. Jumping jacks definitely elevate my heart rate. What's some other exercise I can do? Jumping. Any kind of jumping. Give me a jumping that you think of comes to mind immediately besides jumping jacks. Where you're just jumping. Oh, what's that word? Middle block. Jump ropes. Have you ever noticed all the boxers, man, or if you're whatever? Jumping rope is one of the best cardio exercises you can do. Okay? Jumping rope is awesome. What's another one? How about sprinting? There's a difference between running and sprinting, right? What's the difference between jogging and sprinting, Jerry?
Jogging, you are like less stressed and you're going a little bit slow, but when sprinting, you're just giving all you got.
Okay, jogging, you kind of get a pace. You don't have to go real fast. Some people can jog really slow. But what's sprinting then? When I say sprinting, what is a sprint?
It means you go as fast as you can.
Go as fast as you can, okay? Sprinting definitely increases the heart rate. So anytime we do a more intense exercise, then our heart rate is going to increase. Now there's a reason for that. As I look at you, the first thing I'm going to see is skin. Everybody's got it. It's all different colors, all different kinds of skin, but we all got skin. Now if I was Superman and I could look through you, the next thing I'm going to see under your skin is what? Muscles. And so if I took off your skin, then I'm going to see muscles. Then if I go even deeper under those muscles, what am I going to see?
Your veins.
No, kinda, but what am I going to see? Bones. I'm going to see skeletons, right? So if I took off your muscles, then all I'm going to have is a skeleton. Now that skeleton is going to be laying there on the floor because that skeleton can't do nothing unless it's got muscles on it, okay? The muscles connected to the skeleton are connected by what is called tendons. Tendons connect muscles to the skeleton. And these muscles is what causes us to move. Now a baby's muscles are not developed yet. In other words, they're sort of atrophy. That means they're not usable because they've never been exercised. Now what happens is with a baby is that baby one day, as it's laying in the bed, it begins to try to roll over. And as it rolls over, it takes a while, but as it rolls over, what that baby is doing is that baby is actually developing muscles. It's actually exercise. You don't think it is. I mean, after all it's doing is kind of like wobbling around, but it's exercising its muscles. And one day its muscles are strong enough that it rolls over. And then what happens is that baby strengthens those muscles. Eventually you set that baby on the floor and it begins to kind of crawl and move along the floor, kind of like a snail. All right? Because it's developing those muscles. And all of this that this baby's doing is actually exercising. May not look like it, but it is. It's using its muscles. Eventually that baby will get up on all fours and sit up, right? It begins to crawl. And so once again, it's exercise on muscles. And over time, it pulls up on something, maybe the couch or whatever. And then eventually it takes its first step and then it begins to walk. What's happening here is that baby is beginning to develop what is called motor skills. Motor skills are the muscles learning to coordinate with one another, working together in order to make what's called locomotor skills, which is motion. All right, so for example, that baby, when it begins to use its motor skills, you have to coordinate your muscles. For example, if I walk across this room, I am using more than one muscle. Think about it. I'm using muscles in my feet and toes. They may be smaller. I'm using muscles in my calves. I'm using my muscles in my thighs to walk across the room. I'm having to coordinate these muscles. That's motor skills, learning to coordinate your muscles together. So anyway, I learned how my muscles strengthen as I use them. Now, what's going to happen is we got to learn to strengthen the muscles of our heart because I can lose other muscles and survive, right? For example, we know of people that's had their legs cut off. We know of people that's had their arms cut off. We know of people that have been in car wrecks or football accidents that lose maybe muscle coordination. Maybe they go into a coma. Maybe they even become quadriplegic, confined to a wheelchair, but they don't die. But if your heart muscle stops, you don't know how long. Because what's happening is that you have blood that's running throughout your body in little tubes that are microscopic. You can't see them with the naked eye. You have to look almost under a microscope. But any part of your body, if you cut it, it's going to bleed. That's because there's a blood vessel running through that, through every muscle in your body. And those blood vessels are called different things. They're called arteries, they're called veins, and they're called capillaries. Capillaries are the very small ones that carry the blood to the different muscles. Now, why does your muscles, what does the blood do? What does the blood in your body do? Why is it so important? What?
It's kind of like fuel that keeps your muscles going.
Absolutely. Whenever we eat food, we digest food, and that nutrients from that food, that water, gets into our bloodstream, And our muscles need that fuel, that energy, in order to work. Also, our muscles need something else that's very important, which is oxygen. And so the blood is pumped through our lungs and it picks up oxygen and it's carried throughout our body to every muscle in our body. Did you know that your heartbeat, that your blood circulates throughout your body one time every minute? It only takes 1 minute for blood to circulate throughout your body. Whenever I breathe in, I'm breathing in oxygen and I'm fueling my muscles. Have you ever seen a sprinter? You ever see somebody run? When they're running, at first they start off running, they're hardly even breathing. And then all of a sudden their breathing rate increases. That's because their muscles are saying, I need more oxygen. Give me more oxygen. And so the body's asking for that. And so the lungs say, I got to provide that. And then the heart starts beating faster because the heart says, okay, we've got your oxygen here in the lungs. Now we got to get it to your muscles. And so the heart starts beating faster to get it there. Okay. So today what we're going to do is we're going to first of all check our resting heart rate. Now when you're checking your resting heart rate is measured by beats per minute. In other words, how many times does my heart beat per minute is my resting heart rate. So how am I going to measure per minute? Now, there's two different ways I can do that. I can first of all find my pulse either on my wrist or on my neck. If I'm finding it on my wrist, I come down to the end of my thumb and I find it right there. I can see some blood veins, vessels running right there at the end of my thumb. I can place it on my thumb and I can feel my pulse or my heart rate. Or I can reach under the soft part of my throat right here, up underneath, and I can feel my heart beating there. Now I can, as it beats, I can look at a watch with a second hand or a clock, and I can count how many beats in 1 minute. Or I can count how many beats in 30 seconds. If I count how many beats in 30 seconds, 30 seconds is how much of a minute? Half. So in order for me to get a minute, 30 seconds, I have to double it, right? So if I only count my heart rate for 30 seconds, in order to get beats per minute, then I've got to double whatever I counted to. For example, if I count to 40 for 30 seconds, then I got to put 30 seconds plus 30 seconds equal a minute. Then I got to put 40 plus 40 equals 80. So 80 would be my resting heart rate because I had to double it. Now the best way to do it for you guys probably just learning is to count for a whole minute. Just look at a minute. Now today, at one time, used to, if you watched a race, whenever the runners got through the race, they were always doing this and looking like this. They don't do that anymore. Why? Why?
Because they're more technology and have watches that.
Absolutely. They got Fitbits now, don't they? That already measure the heart rate. Or they've got Apple watches that measure the heart rate. So they don't have to do all that counting. So in other words, they're looking at the heart rate. Now what they're doing is they're seeing how high their active heart rate got. Because what you're trying to do is, if you want to increase cardiovascular endurance, you want to lower your resting heart rate. So if your heart rate today is, let's say, 80, your goal is to eventually get it down to 70. In order to get it down to 70, what I've got to do is I've got to get my heart rate elevated during my exercise, during my cardio. That strengthens my heart. And then when I'm at rest, if I've done a lot of cardio, my resting heart rate should lower. And when my resting heart rate is lower, what that means is that it doesn't take as many beats to get blood throughout my body. Now your heart rate is basically doing this right now. For most of us, our heart rate is resting heart rate is anywhere between 70 and probably 90, 95. Your heart is basically doing this right now. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And as you exercise, as you get active, your heart rate's going to go much faster. Ba-boom, 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 because it's trying to get blood and oxygen to all the muscles of your body. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to eventually lower that heart rate. Now, in order to do that, and you don't have to know this, but I'm just going to give it to you as a quick fact. Your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. How old are you? 10. 10. So if you're 10, 220 minus 10 is what? 210. So that is your maximum heart rate. In other words, that is as fast as your heart should ever beat. If your heart's beating over 210, you in trouble. You're now in a risk factor of having a heart attack. Okay? You don't need to go no higher than 210. So what happens is, to increase cardiovascular endurance, I need to find my target heart rate. Now your target heart rate is about 60 to 70% of what your maximum heart rate is. So if your maximum heart rate is 210, then what you're going to want to do is when you're exercising, when you're doing cardio, you want to get about 70% of that. So you want to get your heart rate up to about 180, 160, 180, something like that. Now, if you're riding an exercise bike, if you go to the gym, has anybody ever rode an exercise bike in a gym? And you put your hands on the handlebars. And what does it show up there on the handlebars?
Your heart rate.
It shows your heart rate. Because what it's trying to do is trying to say, hey, you need to get your heart rate up to your target heart rate so that you can increase your cardiovascular endurance. Does that make sense? All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to play a quick video. It's going to give you 30 seconds to test your resting heart rate. We told you how to find your pulse the other day. We told you how to find, and I'm going to ask you to count, and then we're going to find your active heart rate.